for our second case, we are taking a look at the integral of x squared all over the square root of x squared plus 9. So andun tayo sa x squared plus a na case. So what is a? Clearly, a is equal to 3. Kasi yung tinitigan natin yung x squared plus 9. So x squared plus 3 squared. Applying the trigonometric substitution step, yung x natin, since it's x squared plus a squared, tangent yung gagamitin nating trigonometric function sa trig sub. So x is equal to a tangent theta, where a is equal to 3. Kasama dun sa isa-substitute natin na trigonometric expressions ay si dx, kailangan natin siyang palitan ng something containing d theta. So how do we find dx? We take the derivative of 3 tangent theta with respect to theta. So dx over d theta will be equal to 3 secant squared theta. Then pag nilipat natin yung d theta sa right side, it will be equal to 3 secant squared theta d theta. We are now ready to apply the substitution of these expressions dun sa original na given natin. So we could rewrite our given as the integral of, ito muna, x squared, but x is 3 tangent theta, so 3 tangent theta quantity squared, all over, so in-square na natin yung 3 tangent theta, 9 tangent squared theta plus 9, so square root nun. Then yung dx, we'll write it as 3 secant squared d theta. Now if we take a look at the denominator, may 9 dito, may 9 dito, that is 3 squared. Pwede natin siyang ilabas nung square root as, well, square root of 9. So we'll rewrite this thing as yung numerator muna, distribute ko na yung square, 9 tangent squared theta. Then yung denominator magiging 3 times the square root of tangent squared theta plus 1. Oops! Tangent squared theta plus 1. May mangyayaring transformation dyan mamaya kasi that is a Pythagorean identity. So yun yung basis, Kaya ang ginagamit nating pang substitute ay tangent theta, sine theta, or secant theta kasi we expect that we will arrive at a Pythagorean identity at magko-convert tayo at matatanggal natin siya sa square root. Pero we're getting ahead of ourselves. Ituloy muna natin, dx is equal to 3 secant squared theta d theta. So notice, for our next step, ang pwede natin gawin ay gawin nating secant itong tangent squared theta plus 1 and we could cancel out yung mga 3. So this is equal to, yung 9, ilabas natin. So 9 times the integral of tangent squared theta all over square root of tangent squared theta plus 1. Tangent squared theta plus 1 is secant squared. So all over secant theta times secant squared theta d theta. So na-cancel out na natin yung 3 and sa taas at 3 sa baba. For our next step, i-cancel out lang natin yung secant sa baba at yung secant squared sa taas. So we could rewrite it as 9 times the integral of tangent squared secant theta d theta. So we have a trigonometric integral at our hands, even power of tangent, odd power of secant. From our previous lesson, we know that this is the difficult na scenario. Ito yung less than ideal. So para ma-solve natin siya, gagamit tayo ng Pythagorean identities. We'll convert everything to secant. So we'll rewrite it as 9 times the integral of secant squared theta minus 1 times secant theta. Then we distribute yung secant theta dun sa dalawang terms. So this is equal to 9 times the integral of secant cube theta minus the integral of secant theta. So bakit ko siya sinulat na ganyan? Kasi we have a previous lesson or a previous video na in-evaluate na natin yung integrals ni secant cube at ni secant theta. So I'll try to put something here na mag-flash to link us to that previous video. So let's pull out our previous results and put it here. So we'll use our previous results. The integral of secant cube theta, if you will go back to the video or if you will just allow me to remind you, will be 1/2 times the quantity tangent theta secant theta plus the natural logarithm of the absolute value of secant theta plus tangent theta. Siyempre may plus c pa dyan, pero we're taking it out muna. Mamaya na natin siya ilagay. And of course, the integral of secant theta is the natural logarithm of secant theta plus tangent theta. So in a way, we're done with the integral kasi if we combine these two expressions dun sa result na nakuha natin, this will be equal to 9 times the quantity. So dinistribute muna natin yung 1/2. Pause ko muna. So 1/2 times tangent theta secant theta plus 1/2 times the natural logarithm of the absolute value of secant plus tangent minus integral ng secant theta, minus the logarithm, the natural logarithm of the absolute value of secant plus tangent. So, yan, ipasok natin yung plus c. So, yung 1/2 na ln minus yung ln, that will just give us a negative 1/2. So, same thing. Well, nilabas ko na yung 1/2 para maging 9/2 na lang times the quantity tangent theta, secant theta, minus, so 1/2 to kanina, nilabas natin yung 1/2, minus ln of the absolute value of secant plus tangent. Of course, sa dulong-dulo, plus our constant of integration. So, again, tapos na tayo sa integrals. Tapos na tayo sa integration step. Pero hindi ito yung final answer kasi yung given sa atin ay in terms of x, hindi in terms of theta. So, we'll go again to our right triangle na theta. And remember, yung una nating substitution na ginamit ay x equals 3 tangent theta. That means that tangent theta is equal to x over 3. And what is tangent? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So, yung x, yung ititreat nating length ni opposite, and yung denominator na 3, siya yung length ni adjacent dito sa ating right triangle. So, we label it as so. And the third side will depend on what we know about the other two sides that makukuha natin from the substitution. So, x over 3, that means the length of the hypotenuse will be the square root of x squared plus 3 squared, or the square root of x squared plus 9. So, anong functions yung may theta dun sa result natin kanina after we integrated? Remember, it was tangent and secant. Meron na tayong expression for tangent. So, secant is 1 over cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So, secant must be hypotenuse over the adjacent side. Or secant theta is equal to the square root of x squared plus 9 all over 3. So, we could take these values or go back to our solution. Okay? And ito yung mga nakuha nating values from the right triangle, tangent theta. Well, hindi natin to nakuha from the right triangle. Ito yung ginamit nating substitution. Pero yung secant, nakuha natin na it's equal to square root of x squared plus 9 all over 3. So, isa-substitute na lang natin to dun sa result na nakuha natin from the integration. So, this is the result of our integration. Yung back substitution natin, papalitan lang natin sila. So, it will be equal to 9 over 2 times the quantity tangent, but tangent is equal to x over 3, times secant theta, but secant theta is equal to square root of x squared plus 9 all over 3, minus the natural logarithm of the quantity secant theta. Again, secant theta is square root of x squared plus 9 over 3, plus tangent theta, and tangent theta is equal to x over 3. So, close absolute value, close quantity, plus our constant of integration. So, konting cleanup na lang nung final answer. We could see na yung 3 times 3 dito will cancel out with 9. So, when I distribute 9, it will be equal to 1/2 times the quantity x times x squared plus 9 minus 9 times the ln of, so pareho naman 3 yung denominator, x plus square root of x squared plus 9 all over 3 plus our constant of integration. However, kung nag-end naman kayo dito, okay na rin yun. So, let's just highlight our final answer. And I'll write down the given para lang makonect natin siya dun sa given kasi naligaw na sa taas. And highlight our final answer for this item. Let's move on to our final case. Ito naman yung x squared minus a squared. So, our given will be the integral of 1 over x squared times square root of x squared minus 7. So, for this example, ang point din natin dito, kaya x squared minus 7, ay yung a natin, hindi naman siya kailangan palaging perfect square. So, here, our a must be equal to square root of 7 kasi 7 is a squared, diba? So, yun, hindi tayo restricted sa perfect squares. And since yung form natin ay square root ni x squared minus a squared, ang gagamitin nating substitution for x ay a secant theta or square root of 7 secant theta. Consequently, yung dx natin ay, nakalimutan ko yung d theta. Anyway, I apologize. Ang dx natin ay square root of 7 secant theta tangent theta d theta. So, let's perform the substitution. The given will now be rewritten as the integral of dx. So, square root of 7 secant theta tangent theta. Dapat may d theta tayo dyan. all over what is x squared, that's 7 secant squared theta, times the square root of 7 secant squared theta minus 7 d theta. Yun yung d theta na nakalimutan ko dun sa dilaw. Now, I want you to notice no, na pwede nating i-factor out yung square root of 7 dito. Pero pag finactor out natin siya, it will cancel out with the square root of 7 sa numerator. So, pansinin natin tong 7 dito at 7 dito. Pwede natin tong i-factor out papalabas ng square root na magkakaroon tayo ng square root of 7 na factor sa labas. So, yun yung una natin gawin. So, we'll rewrite this. Same yung numerator or denominator. Ganun pa rin yung first part, but we'll write it as square root of 7 times the square root of secant squared theta minus 1 d theta. So, couple of things to note. Yung square root of 7 dito at yung square root of 7 dito, they will cancel each other out. Secant squared minus 1 is equal to tangent squared. That's my square root. So, this whole expression can be written as tangent theta. So, let that be our next step. Tanggalin natin yung mga square root of 7. Ilabas ko na din pala, yung 7 sa denominator at sulat siya as 1 over 7. So, this will be equal to secant theta, tangent theta for the numerator. For the denominator, it's secant squared theta, tangent theta, d theta. It seems all nice, no? Magka-cancel out yung dalawang tangent, yung secant na isa, tsaka yung dalawa sa baba. Matitira na lang sa atin ay 1 over 7 times the integral of 1 over secant theta. And 1 over secant theta is just cosine theta. So, the equivalent expression is 1 over 7 times the integral of cosine theta, which we know to be 1 over 7 times sine theta, of course, plus a constant of integration. Now, yung remaining na step, no, is isulat si sine theta in terms of x. We go again to our right triangle. And remember that our substitution sa una ay x equals, ayun, x equals a secant theta or x equals square root of 7 secant theta. Step by step, secant theta is equal to x over square root of 7. Secant is 1 over cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that means secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So ang length ng hypotenuse natin ay x at ang length ng ating adjacent side ay square root of 7. We will need to find yung third side, yung opposite, para makuha yung sine theta, which is our final answer. So, applying the Pythagorean identity, this will be equal to square root of the hypotenuse squared minus the other side squared. So, square root of x squared minus 7. And sine theta, yung gusto natin, ay opposite over hypotenuse or square root of x squared minus 7 all over x. So, kukunin na natin to, babalik tayo dun sa solution natin kanina. Okay? And sulat lang natin yung results natin from the right triangle. Sine theta is equal to square root of x squared minus 7 all over x. And our result will be that the integral, the given, is equal to 1 over 7, well, 1 over 7 times the square root of x squared minus 7 all over x. In this case, nilagay na lang natin yung 7 kasama ng x sa denominator. Of course, yung favorite nating plus our constant of integration. And this is our final answer. So what should be our takeaways? Again, binabantayan natin lumabas yung forms na either a squared minus x squared, a squared plus x squared, or x squared minus a squared. Tapos, gagamit tayo ng corresponding trigonometric substitutions para maisulat sila as trigonometric integrals. Then, we will evaluate them using the techniques that we learned when we talked about trigonometric integrals. And then, babalik tayo sa right triangle para makapag-back substitute tayo from a trig function of theta pabalik kay x. So, in the next video, we'll take a look at more examples. And until then, salamat sa pakikinig.